Jeff Chilson.
Good morning, everybody. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to evaluate our literally most distinguished Toastmaster today. And in his second time through the Confident Communicator Manual, he's going to be tackling project number 7, which is research your topic. It'll be 5 to 7 minutes. And he's going to be talking about a surprising aspect of speaking that I'm a little bit surprised he found so challenging. The title of the speech, which pretty much gives it away, is How to Place Your Hands When Speaking. Without further ado, Jeff Chilson.
Thank you, everyone. And since Teresa's challenging us, I'm going to start my speech with why. That is to be a more confident speaker. Personally, one of the things that when I first started in Toastmasters, I always felt unsettled about, and I still do to this day, is what I'm doing right now. I'm talking with my hands. I never have quite felt comfortable with what I'm doing with my hands at any one moment. And when I challenged everybody in my last speech back at the beginning of the year, watch your speech videos. So I dragged myself in front of my computer monitor, watched myself on video, and I said, boy, you're talking with your hands a lot. There's a lot of motion going on with what you're doing with your hands as you're talking. And so I wanted to take the opportunity in this speech to research a little bit about what we do with our hands when we're speaking and why we do it. And then to figure out what can I do? Because for me the challenge, and the question I was asking myself was, because I like to use my hands a lot when I talk, am I making a mistake by doing that, by sort of by sort of muting what I really want to do when I want to make a more bold gesture to my audience? So let me start first with some research on why we use our hands when we speak. The most obvious reason is simply that. We want to make bold gestures to emphasize our points to our audience. And that, of course, is the speech topic for project number 5, Your Body Speaks, and the Confident Communication Manual. But in fact, there's a benefit here to the speaker. Psychology Today, in 2012, they had an article that said, when you use your hands as a speaker, it makes you be perceived as more passionate about the topic at hand. So if you're not speaking with your hands when you're talking, at least on some level, the audience thinks you're indifferent about what you're talking about. So it's good to use your hands and use gestures when you're speaking. But the other thing I found was really interesting, and this is certainly more relevant to me because I always feel a little bit unsettled and I like to talk with my hands a bit, is that talking with your hands helps you to process what it is you're trying to say. There's a lot of research on this. Cognitive Science is a journal. They noted that speaking while gesturing helps to lighten what they call the cognitive load that's going on in your mind as you're speaking. And following up on that research, Discover Magazine and some other research talked about various tests that they had done with some subjects. And they found that as the verbal challenge went up for the subject, that their gesturing would likewise go up. So it was helping them by gesturing to process what it was they were trying to say. And here's a little side note. Toastmaster magazine in an article not too long ago said that this is one way, if you really want to cut down your "ah" count, is just try and speak with your hands a little bit more. Because then you start to process with your speech, so you don't get those verbal stalls as you're speaking. So the challenge for me, as I mentioned, was that I don't want to make sure I'm just making all this noise with my hands as I'm talking, and I don't feel comfortable and confident and very settled with what I'm doing with my hands at any one time. So I did some research in figuring out what the next step was. And the next step is finding a neutral position for my hands. What they call just a place to sort of park your hands when you're not making a grand sweeping gesture. And so that was the first step in the solution. So there's 2 things I'm going to give you here today, sort of a what's hot, what's not. Think about there's some certain certain places that people place their hands in that neutral position that are wrong ones to do. And there are a certain set that you should try and experiment with. So first of all, the ones to avoid. First one to avoid, this is the absolute don't do this one, and that is place your hands in front. It's a little bit military, and I have the benefit of having the video camera. I can watch and see what this looks like. But this gives the appearance in a lot of body language books and experts, very insecure. sense to the audience that you're trying, you kind of already sort of tensing up, you're hiding something. And I've heard them say, actually go so far as to say this is the fig leaf position. So avoid that one. Another one to avoid, hands and back. Now, once again, kind of military. This isn't so bad if you're doing question and answer sometimes, but if you want to deliver a whole speech that's where a lot, probably not the best. Psychology Today mentions this one in particular, that when the audience can't see the speaker's hands, they think they're hiding something. They're perceived as being a little bit untrustworthy. So this might work okay for a little bit, question and answer, but not a good way to do an entire speech. The other one, I kind of nicknamed this one the pretzel nut. You can see as I've already folded my arms up, my shoulders have gone up, I already look defensive. And so this is one to avoid when you're trying to do a speech. If you like to do this for question and answer, I like to do this, or when sometimes I just sort of have a little bit of banter, kind of more of a conversational speech. Try and unfold your arms. You can see my shoulders already go down. It's easy to gesture from this position. This isn't too bad. But once again, you don't want to necessarily do a whole speech with your arms crossed like this, probably going to look like you're hiding something. So what are the best ways? Best ways, there are 4 to try. 1 requires the lectern, of course. If you like to speak from the lectern, a lot of folks like to just park themselves right here. Hands on the lectern works great. Politicians use this one all the time. Keep your hands loose. That we can always reach out, gesture, invite your audience in to what you're trying to speak about. Next one, arms at sides. One another one you see politicians do a lot is actually, especially when they're just kind of standing at the side waiting to get introduced, you see them with their hands at their sides waiting. But this is a great way to introduce your speech, talk. But I think if you don't have some sweeping gestures at one point or another, you're going to look very robotic. I have seen an entire speech delivered with hands at the sides. It looks very uncomfortable. It's a little bit unsettling to move back and forth. But this isn't a bad place to start and to move from that as a neutral position. The other one, you see me do this one a lot. This is where I feel unsettled in my hands. And that is keep your hands above your waist. But then you got to figure out what you're going to do with your hands. I've heard kind of clasping your hands this way a lot, fingers together. I caught myself last week when I was Toastmaster doing this and thinking about this speech. I start to fidget with my hands, this in particular. So you have to find some place that when you're holding them, you're not doing anything with them. And then of course you can just put one hand at your side, the last of the 4, but kind of the 3 major ones. Hands at sides, hands up in front, but one hand at the side. This is great, especially Q&A. I like this one. You can just talk back and forth, or if you have the whole Oxford jacket on, the professor thing. This really works great. But it's, once again, it's a nice neutral way. You can it kind of mutes a little bit what you're doing with your hands, and it's not a lot of noise. So that way, once you go to that grand sweeping gesture, it has the impact that you want to have as a speaker. So remember that gesturing can help you as a speaker to process your thoughts. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. So make sure that your gestures illustrate and emphasize the points that you want to do. Find that neutral position. Try one of those. Experiment with it. Watch yourself on video, as hard as it is. Give it a shot and see what looks comfortable to you and what feels comfortable so that you have a great, impactful speech. Adam Toastmaster.